Hi, and welcome to A Punk with Toys. My name is Lawrence. Today we're going to take a look at my top 6 most disappointing purchases of the year, the most disappointing figures of the year. And I say purchases because there are 2 figures and they may not even be from this year, but they were purchases of this year. And I put them in the same category. They're actually in the same number because they're the exact same company. And these were figures that people said, you gotta try these. These are great figures. These are just amazing figures. And I was completely disappointed by them. And you'll see why. This isn't just me saying, hey, I don't like this figure, it's disappointing. It encompasses pretty much everything because there's 2 of these on here that I absolutely love a lot about them. Their sculpt, their design, but there were certain things that literally just pushed it over the edge, that they were a completely disappointing figure, a bad figure in my personal opinion. But I do want to get into this, talk about it. Now you may ask me, why 6? Well, I've been doing this long enough that I can look at some figures and I can kind of tell, like, hey, I just don't even want to purchase that. I don't want to go down that road. I can tell there's issues with that. I might not like it. So I don't buy a lot of figures that I don't have some sort of knowledge of how they're going to be. This is one of those things where some of these on this list, I thought they were going to be really good. I saw a lot of them. I thought, hey, this company does good work. This company is aligned with good people. I've seen the Instagram reels. So yes, you give them a chance, and this is why a lot of them, you just go with one figure and you find out whether it's good or not. I say the same thing about any figure. AWOC, Mythic Legions, or the 4 Horsemen, or whatever you want to call them, Classified, Valaverse, whatever. You got to pick these figures up and you got to get them in hand, and then you can make that decision if it's worth it. So anyway, you've wasted enough time here. You've listened to me ramble on, and I do appreciate it. Let's get into this top 6 figures. I want to hear what you have to say. Tell me if you've experienced any problems with these, or maybe you can say, hey, you know what? You don't know what you're talking about. This is what you did wrong. But before we do, please, if you like this type of stuff, take a second, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell notification so you're notified every time I drop a video such as this. Now let's get to it. Okay, coming in at number 6 and my most disappointing figures of 2024 is this Palm Hero Simply Fun series, the skateboarder by Did. This company makes some pretty good stuff, or some nice looking stuff. I ordered this because it's a skateboarder, and it's probably only at 6 because I had no expectations of it. But in all honesty, this thing is a piece of crap. And this is pretty much the only way you can stand him. He has these soft, good clothes, but nothing looks right. It almost looks like the shirt's on backwards, or he has a big belly. He doesn't really pose all that well, especially to get him like on this really tiny skateboard. It's almost like a mini, and then he comes with this longboard, really cheap. I knew there was no face paint on it, so I can't be mad about that. His head pops off just that easy, and believe it or not, rolled onto a skateboard underneath me. That's called irony there. But it's just, there's nothing redeeming about this figure. It is just such a disappointing figure to have. And, if you're going to do skateboarding, you really need to be able to get it into skateboarding poses. And even to get him like in a kicking pose, I guess you could do it like that. But it just was such a disappointing figure from the look of him and everything. Again, you see it in the promotional BBTS, and I said, hey, I'll go for it. I know he came with what was supposed to look like Vans, some cargo baggy pants, but the shirt here bunches up. It looks like it's backwards. But that was number 6. I didn't even review this figure. I figured not too many people would care that much, and I was just so aggravated with it. I didn't really want to have anything to do with it. His hands are a lot like Mezco, but really soft. And don't really do very much. So that is number 6 for 2024. Coming in at number 5 is the Entertainment Earth exclusive Flamin' Hot Chester Cheetah by Jada. They glow in the dark, and yes, it's glow in the dark right now because Well, I wanted to show you, and this is with the UV light. And this thing is the biggest piece of trash when it comes to glow in the dark. And it is so disappointing because he's really no different than the regular chested cheetah. So I, along with a lot of other people, ordered this because it was glow in the dark. I think it was $5 more. That's not a big deal, but if it's something glow in the dark and you're going to pay an extra $5, I believe it was $30, not $25, you expect it to actually glow in the dark. And it's awful. It's almost as bad as the Super 7 glow in the dark. And I've seen those things you have to be directly in the sunlight about, I don't know, 20 feet away from the sun to get a Super 7 to glow in the dark. This thing, I think, is probably just as bad, if not worse. The figure is perfectly fine, and as you can see, I was able to make Sea Bison right here, who is one of my favorite customs, but I could have done that with a regular one. So, due to the fact that this thing does not glow, and that is the whole draw of it, is to make it glow, I had to put him at number 5, and I was super excited, along with many others, to get this guy, but in the end, no glow, surely no top 10, but you get a bottom 5 here. Coming in at number 4 is the Savage Crucible Conclusive. Now, I could rave about this figure. I could rave about the articulation, the paint, the sculpting, the accessories, everything that it comes with. The problem is he doesn't stand for anything, and that is because of how bad these feet are. So you want to get him in some sort of action pose. This guy is going to collapse because one thing is these feet are bad. These articulated toes, they rock over here, so once his toes go up like that, you have a small footprint, and you better believe he doesn't really want to stand this way. Now, from what I understand, they are supposed to be shipping out new feet to go with anyone that backed the Kickstarter, and I did get this off the Kickstarter. This figure should have been in one of my top 10 figures of the year because of everything else. But because the feet are so bad and it is almost impossible to get him to stand, so much so that the owner or one of the owners actually remembered my review at Joe Fest and said, hey, you know what? You threw the figure. It wasn't a throw. It was a toss. We all agreed on it because we watched it back. But I was extremely angry. So this is one of the most disappointing figures of the year. And it all comes down to the feet. Now, when someone says, hey, those aren't supposed to be weight bearing, that's fine. Then why would you have toe articulation? And say, hey, it's their first foray into it. It's their first figure. I understand. But I have to give you my own personal opinion that, hey, this should have been one of the best figures, and it's one of my most disappointing figures. So much so that in my Joe Fest walkthrough, as I was walking through and talked to the owner quickly, and we had our apologies, as I was walking, I was watching a guy, and he was posing it, and it fell over on film. You can't write that stuff. Anyway, due to that, and only that, I had to put him in number 4, and I think it's great that they said they're going to send out a replacement feet. That is an awesome gesture, but it doesn't change the fact that this is a very disappointing figure. Coming in at number 3 are these Joy Toy. Now, I don't know if they came out this year, but this is pickups of the year. Now, this comes in really high because of the way people raved about Joy Toy and how wonderful they are. So I picked up these figures, and let's just say this guy with the one leg, as you can see, he may be the only figure I have that uses a stand, and he just might need it. That leg will not stay on, and I am not the only person that has experienced this. Even the ones that vouch for how wonderful these figures are. So I bought 2 of them. One was decently fine. Didn't really have too many issues. But this one, leg fell off the moment I opened up that box. Everything else is pretty decent, but if your leg can't stay on, what am I supposed to do with this? It doesn't do me any good. I took the chance. I bought another one. This is a figure that I struggled with his hands. So much so, to get this hand off, I had to cut it. And yes, I heated this thing up tremendously and tried to get it off. I had to cut this hand off to get it off just so I could get a hand on there that I wanted. All right, and you shouldn't have to do with that with any figure. Not like this. Heating up, understandable. But what I had was just this issue that these things were not going to come out, and I had numerous people in the comments said they had the exact same problem. I also had people that complained about this, saying this was the same issue. My other problem when it came to this was people saying, well, you know what? You can't buy the army builders. Well, I'm sorry. Army builder or not, the quality should be the same. All right? This is bad quality, and I don't care that it's not a named character, that it's an army builder. That doesn't matter. You should still be producing them the exact same. But unfortunately, that didn't happen. So I kind of wrote off Joy Toy. I did have a 40K figure sent to me. Someone wanted me to try it out. I thought it was a wonderful figure. But with these ones, I can't say that I'll ever buy another Joy Toy that's like this again, because it's just completely unacceptable. And coming in at number 2, one of my most disappointing figures, and that is Nemesis Immortal. Or for the people who are going to cry about it, Nemesis Enforcer. I don't really care what you call it. What he is Nemesis. I can't really stand well because my feet don't articulate properly. So let's just get into this figure. I have never been a fan of Cobra La, but I think this figure is designed absolutely wonderful. This guy should be in one of my top 10 figures of the year, along with Road Pig and Raptor. But just like the Savage Crucible, he suffers from ankle issues, but not the same. So quickly, we'll take a look here. And one of the problems is, first off, he doesn't have a boot cut. I guess I can kind of understand that due to his design. But his feet do not go past 90, which means it makes it hard to get him in a natural looking pose. It'll go back and forth, but he will eventually fall over. Other issues. He is extremely wobbly. Not only here at the chest cut, but also at the belly. So this guy just kind of wobbles around. Now, let's say you want to try and get him in some good poses here. And since my ankles aren't going to move, you hit this thing too easily and he's going to fall over. Just like that. So if you're not really using, in my opinion, and if someone tells me, hey, you're wrong, to wait for D-Amazing, well, I'm waiting for D-Amazing and I haven't seen him do one yet. Maybe I'm wrong, but I would like to see what he can do with this, because these ankles do not bend. And one of the main reasons why this comes in so low or high, however you want to look at it, is the G.I. Joe team. They should know better by now. And they do. They've made wonderful figures. All right? They are the best adult collectible line, in my opinion. But this here, as wonderful as a sculpt as it is, how do I get this figure in a good pose when I can't even get this ankle to go down? Now people will say, hey, use stands. Well, you want to talk about something that is ugly, that is on your shelves, and that's stands. So because of all of that I just mentioned, this, what should be a wonderful looking figure, comes in at my second most disappointing figure of 2024. And my number 1 most disappointing figure of 2024 is this Fist Trooper. And I don't even know where to start with this thing. I did pick him up at Joe Fest. I had some nice hopes for him, but let's just say there's not much hope for it. So first off, here's his rifle. It is one of the worst washes. It's not an awful looking rifle, but it's one of the worst washes. It is soft plastic, which isn't, we know how we feel about G.I. Joe. It just doesn't look good. It makes no sense whatsoever. They give you these couple little pieces that you can pop onto the side here, which these pieces just pretty much fall right off. Anytime you're trying to move it around, it is an issue. All right. You have these big, giant, weird shoulders. Again, with this in my opinion, awful wash. This piece just kind of moves around, which I can overlook because you can use it on different figures. You have these gaps in these legs. So you have this big gap right here. All that, the looseness makes it a pretty awful figure. But the worst part is that when you try and move this figure around too much here, this leg will come right off. They just pop right off. They don't stay on. This plastic isn't any good. This ended up being, in my opinion, and you can go watch my review, and I will drop a link to all the videos that I did in the description, so you can watch my reviews and you can see where I stood when I was actually talking about this. If this figure didn't have the thigh gap, didn't have the issues with these legs constantly popping off, he wouldn't be a half bad figure, because I can swap out the weapons. We know how we feel. I've replaced a lot of the classified weapons. I don't really make that such a determination with how I feel, considering this here is supposed to be a new line. Though the wash makes it look awful. The overarching, and I don't even think this one can be bent back to stay in place. But the legs, and again, that is obviously the biggest killer of everything here, is just how this all sits on. I like this idea, but when you start moving stuff around, this stuff will come off super easy and you're going to lose it. I have heard that the other fist figures aren't as bad, but almost every person that has had this figure has pretty much had the exact same complaint. The legs come right off. They don't stay. You can't really pose it. He's a loose figure. There's just nothing good that I can really say about this figure. And it's too bad, because I had a lot of hope for this line. They came out with 4 figures. You can already see that they're marked down on BBTS right now. And unfortunately, this is my most disappointing figure of the year. I mean, there's not much more that I can say. So anyway, there it is, the Fist Trooper, the most disappointing figure of the year. All right, so there you have it. That is my list of the top 6 most disappointing figures that I got this year. And I went through all my reviews, and then there was the one that I didn't even review, and I kind of did talk about that. Again, maybe you had a different experience with it, and if you did, that's great. I hope you did. I'm not here to try and bash other companies or bash companies. That's not what I want to do. And I actually was kind of hesitant to even do this, and that's why I put it as a disappointing. I don't want to bash it and say these are just bad figures, although I wasn't too kind to the Fist figure, because that thing was just really bad. Same with that skateboarder. It wasn't good. The other ones, for the most part, have their qualities that I actually like, their characteristics that I think are really good. It's just unfortunate that so much of these aren't all that good. And when we're talking about spending $35 on a figure, $40 on a figure, $45 on a figure, you know, that type of stuff, it all adds up. And most of us aren't making a lot of money, if any money, on YouTube. So if you're not able to cover your cost, you got to make sure that, hey, you know what? My expendable income is going towards something that I'm going to enjoy. So I did against some of my better judgment, but again, I wanted to make sure this is most disappointing, not just absolute awful figures. Hey, you know what? First time line like Savage Crucibles, they seem like they're doing the right thing. Their sculpt is absolutely amazing, but man, those feet, it's problematic. I don't even want the figure. I hate the figure that much because of it. And it's sad to say that, because it looks so damn good. But thank you all for listening. Thank you all for watching. I've had a great time doing this type of stuff. Again, end of the year, there's always some crazy videos that we get to make. So anyway, I'm going to get out of here. But before we do, please, you stay this long, take a second, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and hit that bell notification so you're notified every time I drop a video like this. Take care.